weeks, we've been challenging you to live for something more. We've been talking about living others first kind of lives. And what we found is that that's a real challenge. We really don't know how to do that well because it's not natural for us. Even though God created the world for us to live thinking about other people before ourselves, it's not something that comes natural to us. In fact, last week we even learned that our relationships with other people directly affect our relationship with God, even though that's not natural for us. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I have this down. I'm not going to, act like I live my whole life thinking others first. It's tough for everybody to live up to this standard. I mean, even in the free country that we live in, it's tough. You know what's crazy? Freedom. The word freedom is a really versatile word in today's society. I mean, think about it. You got a war veteran who was a prisoner of war. You hear him say the word free. You get pictures of torture and prison bars and chains and all that kind of stuff. You feel the emotions of hopelessness and emptiness and isolation, and then eventually you feel thankfulness and redemption. And then you think of another way we use the word free. Think of a college freshman finally moving away from their parents. They get out and they're like, their lives are surrounded about groups of friends and parties, and classes really don't even enter into the picture. They deal with the excitement, emotions like excitement and freedom, right? It's crazy how different those situations are, but most of us, if we were asked, would use the same word to describe those situations. We'd use the word free. So here's my question. What does it mean to be free? I mean, does it mean I'm free from something, or does it mean I'm free to do something? Which one is it? I mean, to be honest, when it comes to freedom, I really think we're all a little confused. In Scripture, there's a letter written by the Apostle Paul to a group of people that are a lot like us. The letter of Galatians is written to the people of a town called Galatia. And they were a non-Jewish town, a non-Jewish culture. And that's a big deal because here's what happened. Jesus was a Jew. All of his disciples were Jewish. The entire Christian message and the gospel of Jesus Christ spread through the Jewish culture. And so when it got to these non-Jewish people, they weren't just hearing about Jesus, they were hearing all of this stuff about Judaism that Christianity was relevant to. For instance, the law. So Paul talks a lot about the law in this passage, in this whole book, really. And when he's referring to the law, just so you know, he's talking about the law of Moses. The law of Moses was this list of rules, not just the Ten Commandments, but a list of rules that was given from God to the people of Israel through Moses. So it's called the law of Moses. And what was happening is there was a bunch of Jewish Christians and Jewish believers that were coming to these Galatians, and they were saying, hey, it's great that you believe in Jesus, and it's great that you started a church, but you also need to adhere to the law. Now, that is a big deal, and Paul writes concerning the law through this whole book. So Paul gives this group of people a bottom line. He says, yes, the law of Moses was a really big deal. It was all that we lived for. But the truth is, Jesus came and he fulfilled the law. And he fulfilled the law so that we didn't have to justify ourselves to God by keeping rules. We didn't have to keep rules and make God happy. So to really drive this point home, Paul uses this word, this big, drastic, huge word. He says, my brothers, talking to these Christian believers, he says, my brothers, you were set free. And there it is, the word free. He used the word free, which in us kind of sparks this sense of entitlement. But check out how Paul follows this up. You, my brothers, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. Rather, serve one another in love. The entire law is summed up in a single command. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you keep on biting and devouring each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. Did you catch that? He said you are to be free because you were enslaved to something. Now you're freed from something. It's like the prisoner who feels thankful because he knows where he was and now he knows where he is. He's free. But then Paul says, don't use your freedom, or don't take this to the extreme of feeling entitled to something. It's not about what you can do. It's about what you were freed from. And so Paul goes on to say, don't use your freedom to indulge your sinful nature. What does that even mean? What's our sinful nature? It's our tendency to be self-focused. See, all of us have a tendency to be self-focused. And Paul's saying, just because you're free from the necessity of following the law, don't use that as an excuse to be selfish. See, just because we don't have to follow the law doesn't mean that the law is not important. Here's the deal. If we say that we have the heart of God, if God is in us because we've accepted Him through His Son, then the truth is we need to reflect the heart of God. And the easiest way to reflect the heart of God is to follow His law, to put others first. Paul goes on to tell us that selfishness leads to destruction. I mean, if you are so selfish, ultimately you're going to end up alone, because no one's going to be around you, and B, you're going to destroy every relationship that you were ever in. I mean, that's huge for us today, because we tend to see freedom as this license to do whatever we want, and we keep ourselves selfish and self-focused because we believe freedom is that license. But Paul says, man, you were freed from the bondage of sin. You were freed from the bondage of the law. Not to be selfish, but to put others before yourself. If you use your freedom and decide to do life to only serve yourself, you will eventually do life all by yourself. It's just the truth, and that's what Paul's telling us. See, God has created this world, and He's created you and me to function at our best when we freely choose to put others first. And just because we're free from any law that says we have to put other people first, doesn't mean that we don't need to, and doesn't mean that our lives won't be better if we don't. The truth is, we are called to live for something more.